For those of you who have not suffered through one of my PowerPoint presentations before, you're in for a treat because I'm going to give you my update with a presentation. I'm a believer in visuals. So when we did the board orientation and chair and vice chair orientation back in November, we took everyone through a list of priorities and strategies. And I just want to say before I get into this that, you know, Kelly did such an amazing job last year. I think she deserves a round of applause for that. You know, to continue the work that started during Kelly's year and to keep things going, and then to, you know, see some continuity with all those efforts and to keep the continuity going as Sherry takes things over next year, right? It's not like, well, it's my year, let's just do this. It's like, you know, the continuity factor is really, really key to make sure that things are still heading in the same direction and that we don't start over every year. So anyway, a lot of this stuff, you know, kind of started years prior to me coming into this role and will probably continue years after me leaving this role. But I think it's really important to outline for you what the priorities and strategies are for this year, and then talk maybe about how things will move forward and give you basically a little kind of mid-year progress report. So hopefully this thingy works. So good, it did. So the 2022 theme, as we've already kind of heard about, is building our bench. And, you know, I think all of us in the room who are past presidents, future presidents, we understand the critical importance of making sure that there's a solid pipeline of leadership coming up behind us. You know, as I am in this role, and I will be in this role for another 6 or so months, and Sherry will be in the role next, and Samantha Tove will be in the role after that, and then someone else sitting in this room will likely take it over after that. You know, it's really important who's going to be after those people. So we really need to make a concerted effort to ensure that we have a lot of continuity and momentum going into the future, and that we bring up those leaders. So that's been one of my key priority this year, and I'll take you through, you know, what my vision was to get a lot of those things going. And really, it's not just my vision; it's the leadership's vision. But I think it's, you know, really, really key that we keep in mind that we have to have a vibrant bench at our association. We have to keep the pipeline of leaderships full. You know, the pandemic made it very, very difficult to get new people engaged during that couple-year period. And so we really need to make up for lost time. So if you're familiar with our association vision statement, it's to be the indispensable partner to our members. So when we kicked off our leadership orientation, you know, we asked, what do we need to do coming out of COVID to be that indispensable partner? You know, we should maybe be a little bit introspective, because just because something worked or we've done something one way doesn't mean that coming out of the COVID environment means that we should continue to operate that way. So, you know, we wanted to kind of be a little bit introspective, make sure that we took stock of where we were and where we really should be going. How are we making our members better off? So that was something that, you know, we kind of kicked off with. Priority number one is to foster an environment to engage members and new leaders. So with that, I had, you know, a couple key little pieces with that. Let's celebrate our leaders. Let's make sure that our members understand who is involved, who's in leadership. So Crystal, our illustrious web person, made a bunch of really cool graphics that probably a lot of you saw that got posted all over the place, because not everyone probably realizes that Kelly Pleasant is on the board of directors. And hey, I know Kelly. Kelly's cool. He's involved. Wow, maybe I should be involved. She also created this Proud to be a 2022 SAR committee member, which we encouraged a lot of our committee members to share far and wide, and many of them did. And you know what? We need to recognize these people. We need to make them feel special. We need to, you know, make them known to our other members, because again, if Christian McGlade is on the Community Relations Committee and is excited about it, who else is he going to get excited about being on the Community Relations Committee? So those are the types of things that we're working on there. One thing that I'm super excited about, and I have to thank Linda Wood for chairing this effort, is there's a working group that has been reevaluating the board composition and qualifying criteria. And I'm really excited because their proposal is going to come before the executive committee this month and possibly the board of directors. So I really want to thank Linda for hard work that She has spent doing that effort along with several other names here you may recognize. I don't think Barb is here today, but she was the vice chair of this group along with all these other members. And we tried to make it kind of a diverse group with different membership tenures, different experience levels, to come up with something that really made sense because, our criteria has remained the same for many, many years. And, some might think it's a little exclusive. Well, let's try to figure out ways to make it more inclusive. There are a lot of people that could add things to the board of directors and serve. And so what better way to open up more leadership opportunities than to maybe open our board criteria up a little bit? So they've been working on that. We also hosted an informational session for prospective candidates for the board of directors. That went pretty well. We did that in May. And that was reasonably well attended, I think, for the first time that we did it. Hopefully, if we do it in the future, it will be better attended as people come to understand what that candidate session was. And then more regular communication to and from the leadership. We send out a lot of different types of communication, and that's all good. Not all of it hits and lands with different members in different ways. So just different types of communication. So you've probably come to notice the president's message in the weekly docket. That's pretty much a weekly thing. One thing that we just did the other day, if you haven't seen or heard it, Cam and Tony and I recorded something about the mortgage interest rate situation. And so, again, how can we give our members what they need? A lot of them are new, right? I think our director of membership said that almost half of our members haven't even been through their first license renewal yet. So if you haven't been through a license renewal, you probably haven't been through a market shift. And so how do we help our members address that type of market shift? Because they're just going to need some guidance and extra help from the association. And then another thing that we've been doing is surveying our leadership. And with that, that's the extended leadership team. So that's all the chairs, the vice chairs, and the board of directors to really get a sense of what they are feeling about things. And, it's my hope that we will roll out, more information-based surveying and questionnaires, maybe to the more broad membership base as we move forward. Priority number 2, diversity, equity, and inclusion. One of the things that we set forth for the entire leadership team, which would be the chairs, vice chairs, and board of directors, is to do the Fair Housing Challenge. So that would be to complete the Fairhaven simulation. That's to watch a bias-related video, and then to complete the At Home with Diversity designation. And we've had, again, Crystal created this really cool graphic for people to share once they've completed that. We've had several people complete it. I'm really happy that we asked people to do this in November. And in January, when we surveyed our leadership, we had quite a few who had already done it, and some people hadn't started yet, and some people had forgotten. And I haven't tallied the results for June yet, but as of May, we've had substantial completion. We are now well over 50% completion amongst our leadership of that Fair Housing Challenge. So important that we embrace fair housing. It is the law, obviously, but we have to lead by example and make sure that our membership sees that this is important and embraces diversity, equity, and inclusion and fair housing. So I'm really proud of the extended leadership team for taking this on this year. Research and analysis, I'm kind of a data geek. I really like information and how it might help us make better informed data-driven decisions in the future. We're fortunate that NAR actually, pretty new in the last year or so, has compiled some demographic type information, and I won't take you through all of it because there's a ton of it. But what's really neat is that, we don't have member level data, right? So it doesn't say that Erin Stumpf is a Caucasian, cisgendered female heterosexual woman, right? It doesn't go into that kind of granular member level detail, but it takes data from aggregate sources, and then it allows us to see, at a more 10,000 foot level, what our membership looks like. And so we asked our leadership to self-identify several things. This is just one example I'm going to show you. This is just the breakdown of self-identified race and ethnicity. So this is our leadership in the purple. And then our membership, according to NAR, looks a little different than our leadership. It's mostly Caucasian. I don't think that's probably a real surprise to anybody. But what's interesting to me is, how different, our membership is than maybe our leadership. And then if you look at where that overlays with Sacramento County, it's just really interesting to see that, some populations here, and it, again, there's several different populations to look at, but it's interesting. We have such like a huge Hispanic population here, for example, yet our membership doesn't reflect that same diversity in the community. Our leadership looks a little bit more like the community, but not our membership. So it's just interesting, like as an association, is it our place to think about, how we make different types of members successful, how we don't leave them behind. So this is just, again, one subset of information of many, many different types of data points that we could look at, but, interesting to kind of see where all that lands. And then engage with our real estate, cultural, and affinity groups, our sibling organizations, as someone referred to them earlier. It's really important, I think, for our members to understand what it is that we all do and why we do it. And I think some of our members don't understand that something like, ARIA isn't just a club here at SAR. Maybe they don't understand it's a separate organization with a separate board. So we actually convened a meeting recently with all the leadership of these 4 organizations, the Realtis, ARIA, NORA, and Women's Council, to try to figure out how we can better work together, if nothing else, just at the most basic level to help our members, understand that we're different organizations, that, maybe sharing the calendar, doing something as simple as that could help with transparency, help our members engage differently with these different groups. Because if these groups are successful, then we will all be successful. Priority number 3, align community and government relations. Late last year, the board of directors agreed to re-envision the volunteer coordinating committee so that it wasn't just kind of operating in its own silo, kind of thinking up different community things for us to get involved with. We wanted to tie it a little bit more to our political efforts. And so with that, the community outreach, as it's now referred to, committee was reformed. Chris Little is the chair, doing a great job. And basically they're thinking of ways to tie together our community efforts to our political efforts. So I'm really excited to see what's coming out of that committee. And then expand our reach. Erin Teague, as if she doesn't have enough to do, has done an amazing job at expanding our reach, building our bench. But, to try to engage more people, she has this really cool liaison program that she's been working on that, again, hasn't fully been launched yet, but I'm excited to see where that goes. And then speaking of Chris Little again, I asked him to chair a working group that is looking at creating a President Circle-like program here for us to support local elected officials. So if you're familiar with the NAR President Circle program, you give to NAR at a certain level, and then they channel you to give directly to candidates every year, incumbents every year. So we're working on creating a local version of that program. Chris is working on that. Erin Teague is working on that. And we also have, CAR working on some of the foundational pieces of that, because it's something that potentially we could roll out statewide and let other local associations emulate as well. And then this is just a picture of President Circle. And then RAF Fundraising, we actually met yesterday, several past presidents in the room and me, and Erin Teague, and our new government affairs coordinator. But, to try to think of new things to generate RAF funds. There are a lot of different strategies that we contemplated, and it will probably look like a multi-layered approach with, maybe some modifications to dues billing, maybe events, and other coordinated efforts. So those are the types of things that we're thinking of there. But, these bullets in particular, I feel, are just sort of never ending in their scope once we start working on something. So what else as we approach 2023? Chris mentioned this earlier, and you should all thank Kelly Swain and Randall Hom for taking on the Herculean task of the CEO search. That process, yes, very well-deserved round of applause. That process is a lot closer to its conclusion than the start at this point. So I would think sometime in the foreseeable future, we'll have some news in that regard, but stay tuned there. So, as we approach 2023, we'll have a new CEO that we want to bring into the fold and make sure that, a lot of these initiatives, before we fully launch certain things, the new CEO will probably want to have a seat at the table to help us think through some things and revision maybe what we've already teed up to take and run with. We've added affiliate members to 2 key committees. So both the nominating committee and the government relations committee are now structured such that affiliate members can participate as well. And there are definitely things coming down the pike with affiliate member engagement that we're working on. Again, kind of waiting for the new CEO maybe to come on board so that we can launch some of the things that we're thinking about. And then we started what I've been referring to as the welcoming committee, where we've actually, after the board of directors meetings for the last several months, we've invited the board to stay. We've invited other members of the leadership team to come in and make proactive calls to our new members to welcome them to the association and make sure that they're plugged in with our services. And it's actually been really enlightening. I think some of the conversations we're having are really interesting. These members, number one, they're surprised to hear from us. And they also, some of them need some help with some very specific little issues. And we've been able to get them hooked up with the right staff member or the right assistants to get those issues resolved. So it's actually been really great. And I think will be just the tip of the iceberg for different member relations initiatives that we hope to launch probably later this year. And again, will be something that, aren't just going to be these one and done events. These will be ongoing efforts to enhance how we relate to our members. And then also, I think it's worth noting that we are forming a task force to look at our financial policies as well, because while we have been outstanding stewards of our members' resources, and staff has done a phenomenal job at making sure that we don't overspend our budgets, it's been about 10 years since we really took a hard look at our financial policies. There are a few different ways that we may rethink our investment strategies now that we've done this big capital expenditure into our building, which is our largest single asset. And as we look to possibly, maybe re-tier our investment strategy, or maybe look at socially responsible investing. Those are the types of things we might be thinking about. So we are forming a task force to reevaluate a lot of those types of things. So more to come on that, but I think there will be a lot to think about there as we move forward, especially given the changing environment that we're in with the stock market volatility and things like that. Oh, I guess that's it. I guess that's the last slide. Well, Erin's out. I'm just kidding.